This is actually the first Roadshow I've ever planned, so I'm personally very touched. Thank you for coming. I'd like to just take a minute and thank our sponsor, JobVite. Hopefully you guys saw them out by our registration table. Please do pay them a visit at the break, and they'll actually be coming up a little bit later to tell you about what they do. So we encourage you all to join the conversation socially and tweet at us at our hashtag GDRoadshow. And if you want to follow along with all the tweets that are going on today, check us out at our handle, which is at GD for Employers, and that's GDFOR Employers. So just to give you a little idea of the agenda for the day, we're going to start with a welcome presentation from our wonderful founder and CEO, Robert Homan, in just a minute, followed by Andrew Levy, from Autodesk. Next, we'll have Jennifer Trendler from Nitro. Then we're going to take a short break. We'll come on back and hear from JobVite, followed by Kirsten Davidson from Visa. And we'll finish up with a Glassdoor presentation from our very own Molly McKinstry. And then at the close, we're going to have a bit of Q&A with the group of presenters. So if you're tweeting, please go ahead and tweet at us any questions you have, and we'll address those at the end. And if we don't get to your question after each individual presenter, we'll also have time for that Q&A at the end. So please be aware of that and keep the questions coming. So without further ado, I would love to welcome our founder and CEO, Robert Homan, to the stage. Give it up for Robert.
Thank you, Mallory. Thank you. Hi, can everybody hear me okay? Let me get all settled here with my caffeine. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming to our Rebels of Recruiting Roadshow. I'm excited to kick things off. We've got a great agenda for you today. To get started, I'm going to talk a little bit about the connected world that we live in. The fact that people are always on and always connected. A lot of the stuff you guys probably already know, but I think when you look at it and put it all together in one quick kind of series, and you look at just the sheer mass of what has happened to the world in the last 2 decades, it begins to form, and it kind of smacks you in the face to realize just how rapidly things are changing and what that means. And then I'm going to tell you how, actually, it's a good thing for recruiting and for hiring. When you combine this always on, always connected transparency with a great employer brand, it really does help you more effectively recruit. And then there's kind of the bigger issue of what all of this means for recruiting, and then there's the specific issue of what Glassdoor, we think our part in that is and how we can help you, and then I'll get to that at the end. Okay, so without further ado, let me throw some stats at you. There's no doubt that we as media consumers are evolving. Without a doubt, I'm the guy slouched over the computer in front. I'm a software engineer. I feel like I was born with a keyboard in my hand. I started programming full-time when I was about 11 years old. It's turned into, actually, that is me. I'm older now, most people now are like this, actually, right? They're like this. I'm a little bit more like this. But if you're thinking about how you need to manage your employment brand in today's 24/7 world, you need to understand how we're adapting and what this evolutionary curve looks like and where we're at today. Average Americans watch more than 4 hours of TV a day, 112 hours a month. That actually has not declined. It's just changed in the way that we consume it. I brought my 15-year-old son to his first day of high school this morning, and I went over this speech a little bit in the car with him. And I asked him, did you ever remember actually having to be at a certain place at a certain time to watch TV? And he truly looked at me in a confused way. Like he's grown up with DVR. Now it's YouTube and streaming. Like that whole concept is completely foreign to him. He's always been able to have media when he wants it and exactly what he wants. And that's just the way it is. The average American spends 162 minutes, or about 3 full hours a day, on his or her mobile device. 64% of you check your phones within 15 minutes of going to bed, and I'm going to guess in this room it's even higher. And 80% of you, the first thing you do, and I am guilty of this, the first thing that you do when you wake up in the morning is you reach for your phone and check for messages and mail that came in overnight. And for younger adults, there's barely a moment of their awake time when you'll find them away from that little screen. A retrieval gadgetology report showed that a growing number of 20-somethings have no problem checking text messages while they're eating, while they're going to the bathroom, and yes, wait for it, I'll wake you up in the morning, while they're having sex. Apparently, having sex is no excuse for disengaging from your social networks and this always-on, always-connected nature of the world that we are in. So the human race, I guess depending on your belief system, is about 200,000 years old. Humans have been on the planet about 200,000 years. Yet these humans spend about 35 billion hours per month, or the equivalent of 4 million man-years every single month, consuming and interacting with each other on the internet. The sheer pace and level of information that is coming at us all day, every day, is absolutely staggering. And you have to remember that context as you're thinking about how to adapt in this context. More than 1 billion people worldwide now use a tablet. It represents about 15% of the global population, and about half the number of people that have a smartphone also have a tablet. That number is rapidly increasing. We're shifting from, we certainly have become a world that uses a small screen and a big screen, and that intermediary screen is replacing newspapers, is replacing TVs for lots of entertainment and authoring situations. Over the past decade, weekday circulation in newspapers has fallen 17%, and ad revenue has fallen by more than 50%. You guys know this. You were buying most of that ad revenue 2 decades ago. You're not anymore. Again, the old ways are dying. I don't know many people that still get one of these delivered. Print newspapers used to be the key media outlet for news, sports, financial information, and they were truly one of the best ways to get job openings at one point. Today, most young people will never read a physical newspaper. That's just the fact. I'm not even sure my son knows what a physical newspaper is. In fact, and here's an interesting thing. Every time a newspaper reader dies, they actually don't get replaced by another newspaper reader. Newspaper readership is declining just about at the rate that their readership is dying. And 2 newspaper towns, therefore, are turning into 1 newspaper towns, and 1 newspaper towns are completely disappearing in terms of physical newspapers. Why? The old way is just too slow. It's 8 hours out of date by the time you get it, or more, maybe 12. Right? If they work hard and they're cutting breaking news at midnight, at best case, they're 8 hours or 5, 6 hours out of date when you get it in the morning. In a world of Twitter and Facebook where information is near instantaneous, this just simply is not going to work. And we're staring down the barrel, I think, of some of this stuff. If it weren't for the fact of the intrinsic value of journalism, I think these would just be gone completely. And we'll talk a little bit more about how industries and companies who have failed to adapt literally are just gone from the face of the planet. It's not just newspapers. It is everything. 2015 was the worst year for movie attendance in theaters in 20 years. In fact, if you were a large owner of a chain of theaters, what you would be looking at is a business that has not grown in 20 years. The attendance at movie theaters in 2015 was the same as it was in 1995, which is pretty friggin' depressing if that is your life, building and running that business. What's even scarier, though, is that the frequency of the crucial 18 to 24-year-old group of movie growers is plummeting. It's fallen by 17% this year alone. They're staring down the barrel of basically having to retool their business to deal with a world where people can just get things delivered directly into their laps and into the screen in front of them. Now, interestingly, movies aren't going away. People love movies. Entertainment and movies and TV and digital media is exploding. You have new players like Netflix coming out and changing the model where they release an entire season at once, and a lot of you just disappear from the grid for like 3 days. I certainly have seen that. I may be guilty of it, too. It took Netflix 13 years to add their first 15 million subscribers, and they added that many last year alone. So the pace at which there is this incredible shift to digital media consumption, it's on us. It's on us. We live in a world that is always on, and it's always, always connected. I am sure the vast majority of you guys probably acquire your music digitally. Even my mom actually gets her music and her books digitally now. Most of you probably use a Kindle or an iPad. It's now the case that half of Americans buy 0 books a year. And whether you find that reality sad or just part of social evolution, the businesses who adapt to these changes in consumption and changes in distribution channels first will have tremendous success. E-books have exploded. Amazon has done tremendously well. Borders is just gone. I mean, and if you stop and think about it, a few of you in this room are old enough to remember walking the aisles of Blockbuster and perusing movie rentals. And there was a time when Blockbuster, was looking at news last night, Blockbuster was sitting on $1.5 billion in cash in the late 90s, trying to decide what to do with this cash. And they're talking about buying a giant brand called Viacom. Right? I mean, this was a juggernaut. And they're just gone. And it's only been 15 to 20 years. I mean, they were gone like 5 years ago. They've just completely disappeared. The pace of change is unprecedented. And that was their business. They'd had to see it coming. They just couldn't get out of the way fast enough because the pace that the change was happening was overwhelming. And so part of what I'm trying to do today is to just hold a big red sign and make it clear to you that your candidates live in this always-on, always connected world where information is coming at them constantly, and it is fundamentally changing the way that they search for jobs and therefore the way that you must recruit. Meet Ashley Green. Ashley's a graduate of Abilene Christian University. In 2008, what makes Ashley special, in 2008, when she was a freshman, hers was the first college class in the country to be issued smartphones upon arrival to all incoming freshmen. They were expected to check classes, check grades. There were some assignments that they could do on this. This was mandatory equipment for Ashley in 2008. Again, I was showing my son this morning, and he thinks I'm really stupid because he's starting his first day of high school, where he's being issued an Apple MacBook Air on his first day of high school as standard issue for everyone. And the thing that he pointed out was this, that was just so stupid about it. He's like, Ashley's got a smartphone. Why does she need another one? And that's a good point. I was like, OK, in just the last 5 years alone, Ashley now will just install an app. And the school will assume that Ashley has an iPhone or an Android, and they will probably require that she have it. They won't give her another one. They'll just point her to the school's mobile-optimized website, where she will check her grades, work on her schedule, and do a lot of her work. The reason this is important to you, Ashley graduated in 2012. She's been in the workforce now 3 years. She is square in the bullseye of who many of you are recruiting. And this is a world that she's just born up and grown in. She expects this to be the way it is. The concept that things wouldn't work well on mobile are just like unbelievably foreign to anyone of Ashley's kind of generation and younger. I don't know about you, my college classrooms did not look like that. And certainly my high school classrooms didn't look like that. But I think it's certainly happening in college. It's a picture of a college classroom. It's happening in high schools. In today's learning environment, every student is connected. They use one screen for their main work, and they use a second screen, their smartphone, for social media consumption, for plans after. I suspect many of them use the main screen for much of that, too, during their classes. Signals fly around the world faster than they ever have. Information changes hands at an unbelievable rate. Many of you will probably remember the, quote, tweet heard round the world, Ellen DeGeneres' selfie from, I think it was the Emmy Awards several years back. When Bruce Jenner became Caitlyn Jenner, this is the most recent example of this, she gathered 1 million followers on Twitter in the pace of 4 hours, which was probably the single fastest time that anyone's ever grown a base that quickly. Facebook is now at 1.5 billion members. If it were a country, it would be the world's largest country on the planet right now. That in and of itself is impressive. What should impress you even more is that 2/3 of those check in daily. Every day, 2/3 of them, 800 million people across the globe, log into Facebook to check out what is going on with their social networks, what's going on with their friends and family, to look at pictures, and maybe to do a little recruiting and to do a little bit of business-type stuff. It's a fascinating thing, especially like in the hourly job space. A lot of people turn to their friends and family on Facebook to help them find a job when they don't have a professional network. And we can talk more about that in a little bit. So as we consume more and more information through multiple channels at any time of the day, when we're always on, we're always connected, and this stuff is just coming at us all the time, how do you cut through the noise? And you know, it's a bit of a rhetorical question. You know how you cut through the noise. You have sources you trust. And most of us, that actually hasn't changed, the data says. Most of us trust friends, family, colleagues, social groups. That's why social networks are so powerful. And many of us trust third-party, unbiased sources of information. All of this is being fed by, and this transparency that is driving much of this. It's fun to look at what we call Barton's 3 laws of the transparent web. Rich Barton was the founder of Expedia. He was the founder of Zillow. He's actually a co-founder in Glassdoor, and he was my mentor for 20 years, has been my mentor for 20 years. He was the first to identify these 3 laws, probably almost a decade ago now. And I think they're fun to look at now because so much of it has come to be. He posited that if it can be shared on the web, it will be shared. There will be no secrets anymore on the web. And I think especially in the last couple of years we've seen this. If the CIA can't keep their shit secret, there is no way you can keep your stuff secret. And it just ain't going to happen. As connected and as rapid as information changes on the web, it will be known. If it can be rated, it will be rated. Everything imaginable will be rated on the web. And we continue to see an acceleration in that. And what that really means is that there will be structured ways to gather people's opinions on their experiences in life and how those experiences could help you. And if it can be free, it will be free. Content on the web needs to be free. I'm extremely skeptical of businesses that try to charge for their content. We've seen a business after business fail. In a world where this much information is coming at you, if one puts up a little wall to charge for you, and newspapers are seeing this now, you just go to the next one. You know, maybe with some exceptions, marquee brands can charge for their content, but that's about it. We see this all over the place. I am sure the vast majority of you use Amazon reviews before you make a purchase. I know I do. I'll bet if I asked how many in this room used it in the last week, a fair number of hands would go up. It is norm now to use TripAdvisor. How many of you have used TripAdvisor to research or plan a trip? Yeah, me too. It's great. And you know, planning a trip's a pretty important decision, and where to stay in a hotel, it's kind of important. I'm trying to figure out with my family and how it's going to fit and blah, blah, blah. It's people using other people as an information resource. It is what we began to call 5 years ago transparent e-commerce. Flash forward, and this is the norm now. All of these marquee brands have reviews and ratings integrated onto their sites. Onto their very own retail sites. They have reviews and ratings, positive and negative, of their own products for several reasons. One, because it gives them great feedback on their own products, but also because the data shows the conversion rate on sales goes up. When you give people information to either confirm or deny their suspicions about your product, it turns out you sell more. Transparency is a key part of the commerce, of the act of making a purchase decision. And I would argue it's also a key part of the hiring decision. And again, that is why Glassdoor is one. We'll talk about that. So, if some of you would like a souvenir from this morning's presentation, I did some research for you on one of my favorite review sites, Yelp. It turns out that Moth and Dagger Tattoo Studios is just around the corners. It's a 5-star tattoo parlor. I checked, they have Glassdoor green. If you want to get a little gangster-style Glassdoor here, maybe one across the back. I'm thinking about it myself. But the great thing is I can actually see what other people, their experience has been in terms of getting this kind of work done. I know it's early in the morning. Some of you are in from out of town, though. If you have a few drinks, San Francisco is an amazingly fun town. We're near some very fun parts of San Francisco. you may find yourself in a little bit of trouble later with the SFPD. The cool thing about that, well, the cool thing, perhaps the necessary thing after that, is that if you do, you can pull out your smartphone, do a quick search for San Francisco DUI attorney, and you can immediately see who is this? Jason Beam, who's been representing lawsuits and disputes in San Francisco for 9 years now, has a 10.0 superb rating and is a 5-star lawyer based on a handful of reviews. This, in all seriousness, is transparency at its absolute finest. It is people helping other people when they are at their most vulnerable. And it really matters in people's lives, in all dead seriousness. If it can be rated, it will be rated. And it turns out cosmetic products are no exception. Real Self is a site with reviews and ratings of cosmetic products and beautification procedures. On Real Self, I learned yesterday, I didn't even know this existed. I was aware of liposuction, but are you aware of liposculpture? That's awesome. They can actually create a six-pack for you. I can see that 350 people reported the average cost of liposculpture was $5,200, and that, most importantly, 94% of people that would rate the procedure as worth it. And not all procedures actually get that. Like, I found lots of procedures yesterday where people are like, no, I would never do that again, and I wouldn't recommend anyone else do it. Again, ratings and reviews clearly invaluable to consumers who are making life-changing and important decisions regardless of their motivations. So if you're going to do this for travel, and you're going to do it for books, you're going to do it for commerce, all the more, when Glassdoor was born 7 years ago, we posited where you go to work, how much you're paid for that work, how you prepare for that interview, where you're going to dedicate the next decade of your life is probably one of the single largest decisions that you will make. And it was nuts that 7 years ago when we started Glassdoor, that information didn't exist. It's super hard to collect that information in a constructive, fair, and useful way. And we struggle every day with what the rules in the community will be, but that is why we were born. We didn't set out to be a recruiting rebel. We've turned, I guess, into recruiting rebels. We set out just to help people find a job and company they love. That's what we wanted to do. And that is our mission, help people everywhere find a job and company they love. And then we struck a nerve. We have 30 million registered members of the service now who've left 8.5 million ratings and reviews on Glassdoor, covering 400,000 companies. And that data's come from 190 countries around the world. Even though we haven't tried, really. We've launched mostly in the US up until the beginning of this year. Now we're live in 8 other countries across Europe, and we're beginning to rapidly spread out. These people from around the world just poured in, telling their stories. Many of them amazing stories about the workplaces they're proud to work for. Many of them stories about things that are great, but some things that could be improved in those workplaces. People helping people in some of the most important decisions of their lives. While we're best known for our content, many of you may not know, and unfortunately, we're working on educating companies to know this. We're also now one of the world's largest job aggregators. We began aggregating jobs 5 years ago because it became crystal clear to us as we watched job seekers go through this process that they needed our decision support information, but they needed jobs too. They needed to know what was available. And then our information was really special because it could help them figure out what actually was a good fit for them, which jobs actually paid a little bit more than they make now, or which ones have benefits that satisfy the needs of their family, and help them zero in on the fit for them. And so the true magic of Glassdoor is actually the combination of this user-generated content and jobs. And it does turn out now that 4 in 5 Glassdoor users are job seekers. So they are people that are actively searching for a new job, or they would change for the right opportunity. And so it's no surprise that we are the United States' fastest growing career site. At this point, we have passed CareerBuilder in the United States, and we are very, very close to passing Monster in the United States. All this data is measured by ComScore. You can publicly go see it yourself. I think it demonstrates the power of this information and the power of combining the transactional information of jobs and what jobs there are with the decision information of other people helping you figure out what is a good fit for you. Okay, but your problem typically is not just quantity, but it's quality. And in fact, we know from a recent survey that we commissioned of more than 500 recruiters and hiring decision makers, we found that half of you said that the biggest challenge you faced was finding quality candidates. Like, you could get quantity, but it was quality that actually was your biggest problem. And that actually shouldn't surprise us, because if you look at our industry and the history of our industry, it's a history of innovation and spend and technology being spent at the awareness phase of the hiring process. There's a pretty simple hiring funnel here, going from awareness, someone knowing that your company even exists, to consideration, them thinking about coming to work from you, through the interview, the offering, and the hiring process. Literally, a help wanted sign hanging in Main Street 200 years ago was a form of a very crude form, but a form of awareness. That turned into newspapers, which were a pretty massive improvement. You could mass market, bring a bunch of people into that funnel. That turned into job boards in the early 90s, which was magic. You could suddenly get your jobs in front of millions of people, which you just couldn't do before, and you pulled lots more into that funnel. That turned into aggregators, which again is even better yet, right? And if any of you that work with Indeed have seen just the flood of resumes that pour in when you work with Indeed, aggregators are really, really good at sucking volume into this funnel. And even LinkedIn is a form of basically reaching out and pulling specific people into this funnel. But there's been almost no innovation and no spend and no technology and effort put at the other parts of this funnel. And that is where we play. And that's the magic also of what we do. We help people all the way along this. We help them not only know that you exist, but then figure out whether you're the right company to go to work for, how to prepare for an interview with you in a way that actually gives both of you a good understanding of the culture and what you're looking for before they walk into that room cold, an understanding of salary and benefits and the key things that people need to know. And quantitatively now, all that adds up to, we know now, we have enough clients and enough data that it takes about half as many resumes to get to a hire from Glassdoor as any other external source that you will use. And in fact, that's actually a third-party survey done by Brandon Hall, looking at us and looking at a bunch of other job boards. And it's just because people pop out. You know, if they're only looking at awareness, they send a resume in. If they do all these other things, a lot of people just tap out. They realize, oh, I thought it was a fit, or I thought it paid more, but it just doesn't. And the result is less work for you and a cheaper cost per hire. It's not just hiring, though. It doesn't end at hiring. You want to keep them. More than a third of recruiters are concerned now about attrition. And in fact, if you're a mid-sized company who might have typically mid-sized companies struggle with weaker employment brands and weaker kind of awareness overall, you're even more worried about attrition. 56% of you are worried about attrition. And the one thing that can really change attrition, and we know this from data too, is fit. If you actually hire the right people into the jobs in the first place and they're a good cultural fit, the chances that you're actually able to retain them are are substantially enhanced. 2/3 of recruiters believe that retention would be higher if candidates had a clearer picture. 3 in 5 employees say job realities mismatch their expectations, so that aligns. You guys know it, they know it on their first day of work. And the result is that they need more information. They just need better data on what it's like to work at your companies and what's important and the culture and everything else. So we know that people will read, by the way, about 4 to 7 reviews before they form an opinion of a company. So don't worry about if you have one negative review that everyone's going to myopically focus on that. They don't. You don't when you buy from Amazon. You don't when you look at Yelp restaurant reviews. You tend to look at a broad picture of information before choosing where you're going when forming an opinion. But here's the fascinating thing. When we talk with job seekers, 90% of them say it's incredibly valuable to hear from job seekers or people that work at the company, but I've got to know from the company what the mission, vision, values, and where we're going. Because that frequently doesn't translate as well from the employee base. And a job seeker needs to know that. They need to know directly from leadership, because the company could be in change too about where it's going. And so you've got to engage. You've got to engage, and you've got to tell your story in all forms of this social media, but certainly on Glassdoor. It's so important, in fact, we've made it free. You can get a free employer account on Glassdoor. About 3,000 companies every month sign up for a new free employer account on Glassdoor and engage. They respond to reviews. They tell their basic story on Glassdoor of what it's like to work, and they begin the process of interacting with this always-on, always-connected generation. Let me end with a couple things. So whether people are actively searching for a job or researching companies, they're going to land on Glassdoor. The majority of people in the United States that search for a job will pass through our doors before they take your job. Many of them will do it on mobile. About half will do it on mobile, back to my point. And it certainly skews to the younger generation. In the younger generation, it's even higher yet. So we began to collect some data on this. And it turns out that about 45% of hiring managers get literally no mobile applications. Nothing. Like if they go look at their funnel and they ask their ATS for a report, like how many apps did I get from people on mobile devices, it's a big fat zero. Yet, we know that our traffic is half mobile, Indeed's traffic is half mobile, LinkedIn's traffic now is 70 or 80% mobile. Like, it's not like people aren't on their phones looking at your jobs. It's that your ATSs and mobile careers sites suck. Nobody can use them. And so you shouldn't be surprised that you're getting no mobile applications. So one of the things that you've got to do, and that I urge you to do this morning, is take mobile more seriously. It is a giant wave that is cresting over this entire industry, and the industry is not doing a whole heck of a lot about it. The good news is, in the meantime, we're completely mobile enabled. People can search for, they can apply to jobs, they can read job descriptions, they can go practically through the entire funnel on Glassdoor, they can get job alerts, but as a whole, for an ecosystem, we've got to get more serious about mobile. This is just completely not going to work over the long term. OK, so I want to thank you for taking the time to participate in this inaugural kickoff of the Rebels of Recruiting Roadshow. We've got a great lineup coming the rest of the day. If I leave you with just a couple things, in an always-on, always-connected world, this transparency is happening. The best thing that you can possibly do is to embrace it. Get ready. It's going to get more mobile. It's going to get more social. You've got to have a strategy for engaging in that. You've got to have a strategy for handling the acceleration behind that. Step outside the traditional. If you don't have a Glassdoor free employer account, get one. Begin to engage on that. If you've always advertised jobs only on Monster and Career Builder, give Glassdoor, give us a test drive. Let us show you what happens when you combine social media with job searching, and we send you informed, engaged candidates. Find the best quality applicants for your company and your culture. Find those that not only can do the job, but those that fit you. You will see your retention rate. You will see your offer acceptance rates go higher as you begin to sculpt your funnel to pull in those people exactly and learn from each other. This room is full of recruiting rebels, and so learn from each other. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mallory.
Right. Thank you so much, Robert. Next, I'd like to welcome to the stage Andrew Levy. Andrew is the Senior Manager of Social Media and Talent Brand. He's going to be chatting with us about Is Employer Branding Dead? Long live transparency and the voice of your employees and candidates. Give it up for Andrew.
We'll get this working. There we go. Can everyone hear me all right? Yeah? Cool. Good morning. Thanks for having me here. So I'm Andrew. I'm with Autodesk, and I'm here to talk about this topic up here. Is employment branding dead? Or more importantly, employment branding is dead. So I'm going to open with a disclaimer here. Even that title ruffled a bunch of feathers within Glassdoor, and there were lots of little hallway conversations and nice, polite phone calls to me before this presentation. So I just want to say, if your brand comes up here, or if your marketing materials or anything like that, I mean no offense. We all have done some bad things, so here we go. All right, so the olden days, AKA 5, 6 years ago. So we had all these really, really super highly functional websites. If you remember Yahoo, tons of crap all over it. We went to these really awesome career fairs and had these beautiful booths and spent tons of money and traveled all over. We spent a lot on collateral. This all was polished. It was beautiful. Every word was perfect. We had ads everywhere, billboards. We talked about the job boards, all that stuff. So I'm going to echo actually a lot of what was said before in this presentation, but just in a little different way. And then the shiny, happy people. We all have those. And actually, I think from the same photo shoot, there were pictures in the previous presentation. So those were all over. We really controlled our message. And then finally, these really polished, good social media or communication plans where everything was plotted out. We knew exactly what was going to happen. It was awesome. That's employment branding. That's where we were. What does this all kind of lead up to? What does it all mean for candidates? It's a lot of hot air. It's a lot of noise. A lot of word vomit. That's where we were. These are the olden days. Things have shifted a little bit. Good old Donald. As I mentioned, things are changing. So what's the world look like, post-employment branding? A lot of these were referenced in the previous presentation, which I think is great. So, Yelp, Amazon, we go to these places for, the actual person who's using the product. And I say employment branding, and I'm making parallels with regular branding and regular advertising, because really it's the same thing, just a different audience. So Etsy, mass customization, a lot more options. You can go and find whatever shade of heel that you want immediately. And I'm glad that TiVo was mentioned before. The way that we consume content has really changed. We can skip the ads, and we do skip the ads now. So those don't really work anymore. Apple TV, cutting the cord, Spotify, all these sorts of new consumer-driven products are allowing us to kind of ignore the brand and go directly to what we want. And then finally, which was also mentioned, citizen journalism, mobile, social media, all that stuff has really shifted the way that brands can actually communicate. Meaning, you really don't own your own message anymore. So that's why I say employment branding is dead, and what's taken its place is talent branding. So get into that a little bit. So woe is me, what's to be done? You no longer have any control over what's being said about you. Well, let's talk about that. So 3 areas that I'll kind of brush on to organize this, and I gave a couple examples of what Autodesk is doing and what I'm trying to do within the company. But mainly, it's lift the curtain, granting the full access to your candidates and your employees. And I'll get into that a little bit further. Empower others to speak. One thing that we're always talking about is, all these social media channels. Let's get on there. Let's talk where people are talking. Hold up. Just stop talking so much. Listen and then do something about it. So these are the 3 organizing areas, and I'll give some specific examples. All right. So let's see if I can do this. Sweet. All right, so the job description. We all know what they've looked like forever. It's a bunch of text on a page. So at Autodesk, one thing that I'm implementing across the board for all of our jobs are video job descriptions, and this is a platform called OnGig. And this is a great example of a role. I sat in my living room over Link, the chat function, with the CFO kind of across the bay, and did a quick 3-minute conversation with him about this VP tax treasurer role. Popped it up. That, from the perspective of a candidate, is instant lift the curtain access. You have the CFO right in front of you talking about the job that he's actually hiring for. Other things that are on these pages, which are excellent, our recruiter name is right there. trust me, lots of pushback from the recruiters by having their name attached directly to their job, and all of our marketing is going through this. Everyone is seeing Craig Vivid's name and reaching out to him. What does that mean? It's fully open. You can really get access to Craig and have a direct conversation with him about what it's really like to work there or what the job is really like. And of course, social media is on there as well. So this is just one example, but all of our positions are wrapped. So every single one of them, you'll have the opportunity for the recruiter to directly interview the hiring manager and put that out there. Uh-oh. I broke it. Oh, I figured it out. Never mind. Sweet. Cool. So that's the job description. What else does it mean to lift the curtain? So I'm kind of making an argument here that, you know, this sort of old school marketing doesn't really work, and lifting the curtain really does mean opening your doors too. So one of the things I'm working on at Autodesk is to really amp up our in-person recruiting events. And these aren't recruiting events. You know, these are parties. These are people coming on site to see what it's actually like within the doors of the company. People aren't talking about jobs. We're talking about technology. We're talking about the cool things our customers are doing. At no point do we say, come work for us. So it's much more high touch, much more personal, much more authentic look at what it's actually like to work there. And this is a bunch of interns in our gallery. So, you know, we're lucky to have awesome spaces. We've got a gallery downtown, you know, a really cool workshop, things like that. But find what that is at your company and invite people to come see it. So the second section that I'm going to talk about is empowering others to speak. And by others, I mean candidates and employees. So less push out communications from you as the corporate overlord, more from, you know, your candidates themselves. So what this platform is it's called Project Bonfire. And it's a space where employees can put up their own stories, put up the things that they're working on, or, you know, we also curate content around, you know, the cool things that are happening in the company. And with one click, they can then share out to their social channels if they want to. And the beauty here is they're choosing what they want to say, and they're putting up their own stories. And there's very, very little overlap between your corporate handles and your employees, so this is going to be a much better way to get in touch with the people that actually would be working for you. So this is a change. Employees are not used to speaking on their own in terms of social media. So what do you have to do? You have to go around and actually educate them. So what I do is roadshows within the company. It's encouraging people to, you know, update your LinkedIn profiles. When you think about the first thing that you do if you get an interview panel, you're going to look up who they are on LinkedIn. So if you land on a page without a photo and just a job title, that's super boring, and they're not going to want to work for you. So a big piece of this is internal education and making sure that they're comfortable putting up and bragging about the awesome things that they do. And then a big piece of this is obviously Glassdoor. So I'm really encouraging all employees, and do say this on the regular, to put up honest reviews. And then we, as a talent acquisition organization, look at those and respond to them if they're actionable. I was having a great conversation earlier about some of the negative things that pop up, and executives, you know, sending an email right to talent acquisition and saying, "What's going on? You know, there's this horrible review." That's okay. Let it happen. Breathe. Everything's going to be okay. All right. So then listen and do something. This is the last section. Believe it or not, we did not have any candidate or hiring manager surveys in place. That just blows my mind. So you know, get something like this in place. Even if it's a SurveyMonkey, make sure that you're getting feedback and doing something about it. And the big thing that people miss from this is, okay, fine. So you've gotten your feedback, you've made some changes. Now talk about it. You know, go ahead and tell the people that have brought this to your attention, or tell the social media, you know, whatever you want. Make sure they know that you're making adjustments based on your Glassdoor reviews, based on feedback from surveys. A really cool platform that's kind of grown up in Autodesk is called the Idea Connection. And you may say, well, what does this have to do with recruiting? it actually has very little to do with recruiting. It's a lot of people just saying, hey, we need a bathroom shelf in this office. Can somebody go and install that? But what matters here from a talent acquisition perspective is that we're looking at what the employees are saying and making changes, and then when possible, communicating that out. So what are the examples here? Meditation in nap rooms, things like that. That has actually become part of our culture to implement these things within the company. So then making space and listening was a big aspect around the Gay Pride event this year for Autodesk. So what came out on Idea Connection, what came out on Glassdoor, what came out in pretty much all of our surveys was that, hey, we need to do some more focusing around diversity. So kind of gathering together all that feedback, we created grassroots groups that came together to build a float, to get involved. We lost a candidate because we didn't have trans benefits. So this group kind of lobbied internally to get trans benefits, and then we talked about it. So it's these sorts of things that you can start engaging with your employees and really listening and making changes. That's what matters. All right. In summary, open the doors, celebrate your warts and your pimples. Since we live in this post-employment brand world, it's now a talent brand world. You can't control your messes. That's all right. So I encourage you to stop talking so much and let others speak. And by others, that means your employees and your candidates. And then finally, listen and do something. So that's what I got. I know I'm super fast today, but I wanted to open up for questions. Any questions? Yeah?
What was the platform you used for the video job descriptions?
Yeah, okay.
Oh, sure. I was just wondering which platform he's using for video job descriptions.
Sure. It's a company called OnGig. It's a small vendor in San Francisco. It's ONGIG.
ONGIG.
Yep. Definitely. We're going to be really ahead of schedule. Sorry for that. Cool.
Any more questions? Don't be shy, guys. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Oh,
you
sorry.
had a question.
False alarm.
So what do you do to respond to horrible reviews that come up?
To horrible reviews? No, that's an excellent question. So the horrible reviews do come up, and I was actually considering putting up a whole bunch of them just in a row and letting people sit and read them, just to encourage that it's okay. It really depends. So I see all the reviews that get sent to me. We have a strategy around, is it actionable? So is there something in there that you can actually do something about? If there is, then we say thank you and publicly acknowledge the steps that we're taking to change it, if we are. And sometimes the answer is no, we can't change it right now. If it's a pretty serious claim, like racism or not being paid or something like that, we respond to it publicly. If it's a rant or a troll, it's not actionable. There's not much you can do. And engaging with that can tend to inflame a situation, so we kind of leave it alone. Those are the two main points. So misinformation, actionable, yeah. And those are all handled by me. I had an intern for a little while, which was awesome, but she left. So, yeah.
So you were just saying that it's about others controlling our brand now. So how do you see your presence? Like, how do you think about the presence that you personally or the other employees of Autodesk or your colleagues, how do you see that carrying out on your platforms or other platforms too, since
Definitely.
other platforms are controlling your brand as well?
So if I understand the question, I think you're getting at, like, how does employees' personal brand kind of roll up into all of the employment brand type stuff, or maybe clarify, sorry.
A little bit different. Just,
Okay.
I don't get the impression that you've gone silent on the line. Like, we get to see you in a video, et cetera. So to what degree are you controlling your brand and how?
Yeah, okay, great. Absolutely. So, I bashed the content calendar at the beginning of this presentation. I don't have a content calendar. We have tons of really cool resources within the company about stories that are happening in different product divisions, employees who are doing really cool things. My theory on communication is, just around authenticity. So if there's a cool story to tell, we tell it. If there's something interesting that I think people might be intrigued and want to join the company, we tell it. And that may be about us. It may not be about us. A lot of it's the really awesome things that people are doing with our products. A lot of people don't know that Autodesk is not just architecture. It's 3D movies. It's all that stuff. So sprinkling in those stories are great. But in no way is it a demand generation hit over your head. And I'm going to say something that probably will make people very angry at Glassdoor. But so there's now a communication platform on Glassdoor. You can push out messages there. And I personally don't use that because I think that this site is really meant for employees or candidates. It's supposed to be kind of hands off. So if I were to communicate using those, the publishing function on Glassdoor, it would just be around an employee story or something like that. Nothing corporate messaging.
That goes against your transparency thing, opening the curtains, doesn't it?
What do you mean? So which?
Replying to feedback on Glassdoor,
Oh yeah.
You sort of said that you don't reply on the platform because you don't want to mix up the messages between employees and candidates.
Let me clarify.
But
So we absolutely
want
do.
to open the curtains, right?
We absolutely do reply on Glassdoor. So if we get something that's actionable to the previous question, we will say, hey, we're working on this. We heard you. Thanks for the feedback. And here's what's happening. Or here's a person you can contact to get more information and put the person's name and contact information out there. So full transparency. What we don't do on Glassdoor or even really much on LinkedIn is marketing messages. Here's our job posting. Come join us. That kind of language is not the goal for us.
Okay.
Great, and we have one more question back here.
Oh, good. Lots of questions. Excellent.
Hi, good morning.
Hi.
Could you elaborate a little bit on the idea connection page? Is
Yeah.
that a part of your blog, or how is that curated? You select certain things that your employees submit?
So that alongside, so Idea Connection kind of grew up out of some random person in EIS building a platform that they wanted to just exchange ideas. And more people started putting stuff up there. And what we noticed is that a lot of them are around HR. It's either your building space or work culture, or this platform doesn't work, things like that. So talent acquisition got involved to kind of start curating those and seeing which ones could actually be addressed. And then when we can address them, we communicate to that internal community and also communicate externally that, like, hey, we're actually seeing these things needing to be changed and we're changing them. Does that make a little more sense?
Yeah, so it went from internal to external, now it's public facing. And your talent acquisition team curates it.
Yeah, it's still internal, but we're actually making it publicly facing by communicating the changes that we're making based on employee feedback. So that's really part of our internal brand is, hey, we listen and we're actually making some changes.
Okay, wonderful. We are all out of time for questions at this time, but please save any questions that you have for Andrew for the end of the roadshow, and we will bring everybody back up for a little bit more Q&A. So at this time, I'm going to welcome up Jennifer Trendler. She's the head of talent at Nitro. Please give her a hand.
a little bit about what we do, really in the document collaboration space, and won't spend too much time on Nitro, but at least if you haven't heard of us, so you have a little bit of a sense of who we are and what we do. First product, Nitro Pro, about 10 years ago was launched, but most recently launched a product called Nitro Cloud, and again, really focused on document collaboration space. But mostly using our products, it's all about working more effectively and efficiently. And our products have really driven the culture and the way that we sort of approach a lot of the ways that we do things internally. And so in terms of what we'll talk about a little bit today, talk a little bit about the talent structure at Nitro, how we're set up and what we do. A little bit about the climate when it comes to hiring, and I know we're probably all in the same boat in terms of the challenges, and especially given our goals and the current market. Talk a little bit about our employment brand, because I think we've definitely focused a lot on it over the past few years. It's evolved, tapping into our employees and sort of what we're hearing from our candidates, but we'll share a little bit about how we've gotten the word out there about what we do. And then finally close with our Talent Ambassador program, which really sort of leverages our brand, and we'll talk a little bit about how we've done that really effectively over the past few years. In terms of our philosophy, I think we're probably along thinking with you guys where really talent is going to determine whether or not our company is successful, short-term and long-term. So there's really a big emphasis throughout the company, beyond the talent team, to finding the best talent, and everybody really participating in that process in a lot of different ways. And we really see working at Nitro as a career-defining opportunity. There's so many examples within the organization right now of people who have started in one place, have really evolved, been able to learn, really do some really great things. So we really take a lot of time to make sure that we get the word out there to people. We're always talking to our candidates about all the great things that they'll be able to accomplish if they come on board at Nitro. The other thing that we really sort of look to when we think about our culture and talent is our values. Our Nitronauts, the nicest people you'll ever meet, they definitely kick ass. We really focus on and look for people that are very high performance. I think our revenue has grown incredibly well over the past few years, 10 years consistently, and it's because we're really focused on that performance. Very no bullshit. We're an Australian-founded company. I don't know if you guys know very many Aussies, but they absolutely tell it like it is, and you get that sense in our culture. So everything from the way that we're communicating internally, obviously never rude, but very direct with one another, to the tools and the way that we work. It's all about, again, how do we get things done in a very efficient way. And we're all about being good. So, we are high performance, and I think sometimes that could kind of scare people a little bit, but we also realize that we've gotten to where we have, and we've been able to accomplish what we've had, but able to because of our employees. So we take incredible care of our employees. We take great care of our candidates. We're always adding to sort of what we're doing for our employees to make sure they realize how valued and appreciated they are. And so this is a picture of our talent team, and I love to include this as part of presentations because, number one, I always want to take advantage of every opportunity to acknowledge our teams. We obviously could not accomplish anything without them, but I also like to show people how lean we are. We are a very small team. Up until, 6 months ago, there was only 3 of us. And we've still been able to do some great things. So again, just kind of a little bit of if you hear a lot of great things here, and I think sometimes people get a little scared, like there's only 1 or 2 of us. There's only sort of 3 or 4 of us, and we've been able to do a lot over the years. And then the hiring climate. We have a lean team, like I just said, but our hiring plan has been very ambitious across sort of all functions of the business. We're a global company. We do all of the hiring out of San Francisco. So out of our office, we're hiring for the headquarters. We're hiring for Melbourne. We're hiring for Dublin. It's big, getting to know those markets and getting to know the candidates and really understanding the nuances. It's definitely been very challenging. And the job market. I don't think I need to tell any of you about how hard things are. I think in the past few years, 3 years ago, we thought things were competitive. 2 years ago, things were getting crazy. Now we're in this place where, we're all sort of competing for the same candidates. It's definitely challenging. But I think, again, the key is how are we always finding new ways of, reaching some new and great candidates. And so our employment brand, this has always been a pretty big part of sort of what we do from a talent side of things, or talent perspective. When we sort of first formed the talent team a few years ago, really the big focus was on Glassdoor and then also using LinkedIn. And then obviously as the team has grown and our needs have grown and our resources have grown, we've really sort of spread out and done much more when it comes to the employment brand. We've looked at feedback from candidates and feedbacks from our employees and figured out what are the best messages, what are the best ways to sort of reach some of these people. And so tap into things like the Muse, our blog posts. We've always done blogs as a company, but we've sort of in the past year really sort of tweaked them to really sort of send out messages and share information about what it's like to work at Nitro. And the questions we hear from candidates, we're using that as sort of content that we're then sort of putting out there and sharing with people pretty aggressively. We've really tapped into how engaged our employees are. If we've used things like GagLamp and obviously our referral programs. There's only 4 of us, so we need to do everything we can to get the word out as much as we can. This is sort of what we're doing on the talent side of things. Branding campaigns with our amazing marketing team. You see a few little pictures there. We did sort of a big launch last year when we had a push in Dublin to really get the word out there as Nitro is a great place to work. We had the whole team involved, and they are so passionate and so engaged that we've really kind of been able to leverage that enthusiasm pretty effectively. And obviously our end goal is always about sort of reaching those candidates and then hiring some really great people. And then, a little bit about the passion and the enthusiasm. As we sort of talked about, we're a lean team. There's 4 of us. There's limitations to sort of how much you can do. But when you can tap into 200 people throughout the world in all of the offices and really arm them with what they need to sort of go out and be the best ambassadors, you're obviously likely to have much more success in that area. So we really started off a few years ago with what we call our Talent Ambassador Program 1.0. And, I think we're all always learning, right? So what we did 3 years ago, I think, was super effective at the time, but there were lots of learnings. We have such a passionate, enthusiastic team. We got a ton of referrals, which is great. I mean, who isn't excited when you see 100, 200, 300 referrals coming your way for roles? But obviously, sometimes that's a little tricky because the quality might not be there. And again, we were a really lean team. So even though the program was sort of effective from a volume point of view, there definitely were some pain points there. Our response time as a talent team wasn't really where it needed to be. Again, only a few of us, lots of referrals coming in. Employees wanted to know what was going on with their referrals, and it would often take us, days, maybe even a week or 2 to get back to people on their referrals, which is obviously not ideal. And then the quality of referrals. Hit and miss, sometimes depending on the role and sort of the employee that was recommending somebody, the quality was awesome. Other times it was kind of like the cousin they grew up with, they hadn't seen in 5 years, who, heard about Nitro as a great place to work and really just wanted to get in. And, as great as it is to have people enthusiastic, not necessarily the best fit for sort of who we were looking to hire at that point. So we really kind of needed to change things. We, as a team, kind of sat down and thought about, how do we make this better? How do we go back to our cultural values and kind of tap into the way that we approach things? And again, always sort of improve. And so we really sort of came up with a second version of the program that I think has really led to some really great success. So the whole idea, leveraging technology. Up until this point, we had really been doing a lot of stuff manually, which really obviously is not ideal and does not scale, especially when you have goals that are going to continue to get even sort of more aggressive as the company grows. How do we implement training? I think we really did not do a great job, given how small the team was, in really sort of arming our employees with what they needed to really be successful ambassadors for us. They'd go out and they'd talk about Nitro, but they didn't actually have all the information that they needed about the jobs and the culture and the training programs. And then reinforcing it. I think we would sort of send out emails. We'd kind of announce it every once in a while at company meetings. People knew about our referral fee. But I don't necessarily know that we were as effective as we could have been. And so really when we looked at the 2.0, the next version, it was focusing on those things and making it better. keeping it simple, on our end and also on the employee end. I think when things get complicated, you start to lose people. Our goal was absolutely to keep it simple. We obviously wanted to increase the quality of the referrals. I think we talked a little bit about that earlier. That is key. And then we also wanted to make sure everybody was having a great experience. So I think it goes without saying that we all are aiming towards giving our candidates the red carpet experience, but the same thing should happen for your employees. They should be having an amazing experience. We want them to continue to feel proud about working for Nitro, not send someone our way and then not really know what's going on, and then their friends asking them and they're embarrassed. That is not sort of the experience that you want people to have. So we really, we relaunched the program very, very successfully. We really, again, gave a lot of thought to the way that we did it. So there was a teaser campaign. There was a lot of sort of energy around all of the offices. We're here in San Francisco. We don't have talent team members in Dublin, but we tapped into a few resources there to kind of help us build that excitement in the offices. And really, we had sort of implemented a new technology to do that. So the idea was that leveraging this technology or launching this technology would make things very, very simple for people, but we needed to get them enrolled. So we, again, teaser campaign, big hubbub in all of the offices. We had desserts, we had treats. The talent team was going around and talking to everybody. And, we had a goal of getting all of our offices more than 80% participating. And for us, participating was getting them enrolled, connecting to sort of their different networks in terms of, LinkedIn, Twitter, and getting them going. And our mission was accomplished. We, within sort of 48 hours, every office was at least 80% enrolled. In some of our offices, we're close to sort of 95 and 100%, which was really great. And so, the key to the success was really, like we talked about, sort of having those proper tools in place. But really moving forward, it's making sure that everybody is sort of has what they need to go out and, be the best ambassador for Nitro as they possibly can. So when people start at Nitro within the first 30 days as part of their onboarding, they're onboarded into how to be a talent ambassador for Nitro. We go through the tools. We have a little session first thing in the morning. Usually we do have a couple different sessions. We want to make it convenient for people. We walk them through the tools that are, again, very intuitive, great functionality, have mobile capabilities, which we've all talked about is pretty key. And then we talk about the terms of the program, what's the expectations are, what the limitations are, what their role is. And then also give them some training on do's and don'ts. I think that just like you would do training for your hiring managers, you really need to make sure your talent ambassadors are really trained as well. Maybe you don't think about it, but they're out there representing Nitro, talking about the brand, talking about the opportunity, talking about the culture. So we really want to make sure that they're doing it really effectively, and they're doing it in ways that are safe, aren't necessarily going to put the company in a bad situation. And then the key to, I think, it being really effective is all about reinforcing the program. So, it's not just like we onboard and then they never hear from us again. We're always acknowledging people when they make those referrals, when we actually make those hires. When they're going out to conferences, we're sort of giving them, little packets of information and talking points so that we're really partners with them to make sure that, again, they're armed with everything that they need to go out and be talking about Nitro really successfully. And I think, we've had lots of success with the program over the past few years. Even sort of at our 1.0 version, 35% of our hires in 2014 came from the Talent Ambassador program. But obviously, you can see in 2015, when we sort of really rolled out a new improved version, it's been amazing. 45% of our hires to date have come from this program, and we're only, 3/4 of the way through the year already. And I think the really other interesting thing to note is it's across the company. So, product eng, that probably makes up a huge percentage of that 45% in terms of the candidates that have come in as a result of this program, which, as we know, all good candidates are hard to find, but in particular in those areas, it's challenging. So I think the more that you can sort of tap into the passion and enthusiasm of your employees, arm them with the tools, make it really easy for them, the more successful you'll be in able to meet your hiring goals throughout the world. And that's it. Any questions? Anything? Tell people a little bit more about the program?
Yeah.
Have you tracked retention of the hires that came through the
We do,
ambassador? Okay.
and I don't think it's surprising. It's obviously been much higher. So kind of goes back to culture, and I think a few people have talked about that earlier today. The people who work for us, they absolutely get us. So they're also able to kind of know, beyond the skill set that we're looking for or the job responsibilities, these are people that would obviously be a really strong culture fit at Nitro as well. So yeah, much higher than someone just off the street or someone with no background. Yes. No, you. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah, you know what? To be honest, our culture is all about sort of embracing technology and always improving upon things. And really, it was making their life easier. So we sort of had this new tool in place that provided them with so much information that was very intuitive, made it very much easier for them than I think the way that we had done it in the past. So, definitely there was a lot of communication around launching the tool, what they needed to do. Again, there's that reinforcement, but it's been pretty successful, and they really embraced it. Definitely a lot of work on our end to kind of make sure we were getting the right information out there, but it really worked. Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah. We used RollPoint. Yeah, oh yeah, she asked what tool we used. We used a tool called RollPoint. Yeah, and we'd actually looked at a variety of tools. There was a tool called YesGraph. Simpler is another tool that's actually really evolved a lot over the past year, so you may want to check that out. But RollPoint was, when you look at all these different tools and technologies and you sort of have this demo and you're like, oh my God, that's awesome. We kind of had that feeling when we saw RollPoint. So, there's sort of that opportunity using RollPoint to really tell your story about the culture. You can embed videos. There's all your open job descriptions. There's mobile capabilities. Not to keep going on and on about RollPoint, but there's really, it's a really robust platform, so it really just kind of made everybody's lives a lot easier launching that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, say that again. It does. And so we use Greenhouse as our ATS, and it did integrate, which is another thing that was really important to us as well. Yeah.
Are you guys using any sort of referral bonuses?
We do. Yeah, we do. So we do a $5,000 referral bonus. Obviously, kind of standard terms, someone has to be there for 90 days before we pay it out. And then the other thing we also have, too, is an outside referral program. So people who we've worked really closely with, they can also be ambassadors for Nitro. We do the same thing. We arm them with the information that they need about Nitro, and then we pay an outside referral fee of $2,500 for hires.
Do we have any other questions? All right.
All right.
Great. Thank you so much,
Great.
Jennifer.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break. We're running a couple minutes behind schedule, so please go ahead and get some refreshments. There's coffee and water, tea, and please be back here in about 8 minutes. So that's going to be at the 23. right. All right. It is 10:23. We're going to go ahead and get started for the sake of time. And let it quiet down just a bit. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Hopefully you got some coffee in you. You're feeling rejuvenated. At this time, I would like to welcome Rachel Biddy from JobVite. She is the Chief People Officer. JobVite is our sponsor for this event, and Rachel's going to come talk to you a little bit about what they do. Give it up for Rachel.
Thank you so very much. I am really honored to be here and be part of the sponsor from JobVite with Glassdoor. This is officially my first 30 days on the job, so if there are questions I cannot answer, I have great folks from my team and our marketing group that are here later. So it is one of those things. I actually started my career in recruitment. So I wish at the time that I started doing that, I actually had events like this to be part of. So I'm thrilled to have Glassdoor doing that. You guys know this every day, right? The increasing pressure that's happening with recruitment, right? Folks have really said the competition's really tight. The budgets aren't exactly increasing as much either. So you guys are having to be smarter, be creative about what you're doing in order to really hire the best talent. The other part is that employee attrition is turning over. So it's not just about bringing new talent into the company for new positions, but it's also the continued churn that's happening in your company as well. So all of those have created some pressure, right? And wanting to be able to do our jobs really well. You know, one of the things that, I really am honored because Molly, who's here from Glassdoor, we've actually got to do 2 events together already, so I'm feeling this great connection already. I love the rebels of recruiting. I will say, one of the things we're going to talk about is the funnel with regards to recruitment. I will move my slides. And one of the things, we talk about the rebels. I will say I started my career getting a chance to work with a whole bunch of ex-military recruiters, actually at Apple, which is why I'm known as Biddy. Like, nobody practically calls me by my first name because of that. And talk about rebels. I mean, these guys were breaking rules left and right all the time. And so I do think there's something about the recruiting function that does kind of break the norms, break the rules, leads the industry in this space. And so I love the title that we've put together in this area. One of the things that we're going to talk through a little bit is what we call deconstructing the funnel. This data is pulled from our customers over the last 2014. We've had over 50 million job seekers looking at our product. We've had 10 million applications just this year. And this is also compiled of 2,000 companies from 10 different industries. So I'm fairly hopeful that your industry that you're in today is somewhat representative of what we're going to share here today. What you're going to start to see here is what we've called the funnel. I think Andrew had part of this with his presentation. And I do love that phrase of talent branding, right? Because it is about we don't necessarily control that messaging anymore. It's our employees do and our candidates do. And so you look at the different parts of the funnel, and you're really looking from that branding to that pipeline, to that candidate experience that we all know that those candidates could be great candidates for today, they could be great candidates for tomorrow, and they could also be potential customers for some of us. And so that experience really matters when they're working through that part of with our companies. Of course, the selection process, as we know, can be very arduous and difficult in trying to find that right balance of skills and values for a company to make it work really well. And then what we kind of look at the bottom part is like, what are the insights that you're gathering as you're hiring talent? And you're learning from, gosh, what's really working in certain regions, what's really working for certain organizations, and having that success just continue to get better and better as we get faster, we get smarter about it, and we also look to have people who contribute to the company and contribute to the culture. Welcome to the stats. This is actually kind of fun for us to be able to share with this. When we look at it, most folks who come to a career site, so this is actually by the time they get to your career site, really only 5% are actually clicking on the apply page, which means you're losing 95% just between that, which is kind of staggering. And so when I think about the work that Glassdoor has been doing with regards to employment branding, talent branding, right? Glassdoor had a recent survey that said 94% of respondents are likely to apply to a job if the employer actively manages and facilitates that experience. And so the work that Glassdoor is doing, Autodesk is doing, right, we're definitely seeing Nitro is doing, you guys are hearing, is really an important part of that and to make that work well. The other one that we're really looking at is the next piece, which is what we call 11% of folks that actually click on the apply page actually become applicants. So they may look at a posting, they may cruise around on that, but they actually becoming an applicant is only 11%. What you'll see on the bottom is what they call the number of questions that you put online for that application. And as you see, the number of questions actually decreases. So you may really have to judge what's going to be right for your company. That balance between wanting them to have a good experience, but also asking the right questions that qualify people in a good way, right? This is why we kind of tend to do this. There was an analysis done by Appcast recently that said rates drop 365% if the application takes more than 15 minutes, right? And think about if you're on a mobile device as an applicant. I actually think I did this on the train a year ago. And I was applying on something, and I stopped because it took more than actually even like 4 minutes practically on a mobile device. And so this is an important thing you do think about those folks looking at that experience on the front end of the funnel. This is just kind of a fun statistic. This just gives you an idea of a lot of the data that we have in our product with our customers that we take a look at. I love the fact that the recruiters spike at 2 a.m. I don't know if this is because everybody comes home from the bars, or if it's because everybody's a parent and is waking up for midnight feeding, right, with newborns or something. So I will admit I probably was that recruiter at 2 a.m. a few times. And so it's just a great way to show when are your candidates in the product, when are the recruiters in the product. And we look at the fact that some of the expectations for candidates nowadays is they want a reply within a day. And if you look at this cycle and you look at when the candidates are coming in and the recruiters to catch up with that, it is a very rapid pace with which we're working to meet those expectations. But I actually asked our group, I said, is this normalized for time zones? Like, could that maybe be 5 a.m. East Coast? They're like, nope, this is normalized for worldwide. So I'm really interested in the 2 a.m. Maybe you guys will tell us some stories. I think I had a few stories myself even, too. This is just an overall, on average, what we find is that 59 applicants per requisition. That's just applications that are going through on an average that we're seeing. The next statistic is what we call the applications to interviews. This is 12, right? So it really is about 9 applications are actually getting to 1 interview. And we consider interview even that phone screen interview, right? So there's a sorting that goes into this. There's an evaluation that even gets to that part. And so those online applications can actually help you in that space, or can actually make it a little more challenging too, depending upon what you're doing as a company. The next one that we look at is around 17% actually go from interviews to offer. And I know many of us have phone interviews, first round, second round, sometimes it's regional, sometimes we're flying people in. So 17% actually make it all the way through to actually getting an offer. And this is where I think a lot of the employment branding, the talent branding is really important, because people are really talking about their experience with a company. Hey, I didn't hear back. Kind of doesn't feel so great, right? Or these are the types of questions that I got to be asked. This information is out there, and it's going to become even more and more prevalent. And so that candidate experience, as I mentioned, for candidates for today, candidates for the future, We just hired somebody at our company who came in for a completely different job like 4 weeks ago. And it wasn't a great fit, and we're like, ooh, no, wait a minute, she'd be great for X, as we started to look at that. And their customers. I spent a lot of my career actually getting into it, and the reality was that a lot of our candidates could be small business owners looking at QuickBooks, and particularly consumers for TurboTax. And so keeping that brand in mind is really important as well. The other stat that we look at the final stage is 89% actually accept, yay. We all know that 11% really, when it happens, it hurts, right? Somebody on my team this last week was just kind of like crushed. It was such a great person, such a great fit, and it didn't end up coming to fruition for all kinds of reasons. And, but that 89% still pretty, it's a good ratio when we look at all the pieces of the funnel. Harvard Business Review actually talked about recently that 80% of turnover that happens for people is specifically tied to a bad hiring decision. And so you might really want to think for your company, if you're making some bad hiring decisions, what is it about? Oftentimes companies find they're just rushing. Gosh, I think they're going to do well. I think they're going to be great. But, I'm not quite sure. But boy, you know what? I got to get a body in here. We got to get the work done. And so really thinking about the skills and the values for your company for a fit really matters. Average time to fill. Everybody wants, this is what we're seeing is about 43 days, which I think is probably not for some of our engineering talent in the Bay Area with how competitive it is, but it gives you an idea of a couple of the things that are coming into play. Lastly, I'd just like to leave you, we talk about the recruiting funnel. We talk about all the stats that come into play here. You guys are, this is information that's helpful to kind of say, hey, what's happening in the benchmarking of the market, and then be able to look at how are we doing as a company. JobVite, we really work to help our clients in this space of really automating a lot of this funnel. And so you'll see everything from JobVite Refer, which is very mobile and easy to use, so our employees are able to bounce stuff out pretty quickly, like, hey, I know somebody who's an FP&A person. I should go shoot them that job description. It's about making that easy and making it really handy for folks. JobVite Engage is very much about how do you go proactively out there and gather and get that great talent. And then JobVite Hire, which is really helping, of course, the ATS side of part of our product offering. There's a bunch of work around scheduling and video. You guys have heard the power of video, right? We're such a global company nowadays that can really be powerful. Most importantly, I think we talk about the funnel is no different than marketing and sales years ago, right? How are you transferring? How are you converting candidates through each stage of the funnel? And what it's about is being able to look at your data and your analysis to say what's working, what's not working, how do we optimize, how do we get smarter, and how do we get faster with each of those. So I want to thank you very much for the opportunity, and I am wrapping up.
All right, thank you to Rachel. At this time, I'd like to invite Kirsten Davidson. She is the Director of Employment Brand for Visa. And at this time, I'd also like to remind you, when we do Q&A after each presenter, just wave your hand if you have a question so we can run over and give you the mic. All right, thanks, Kirsten. Can we get a round of applause for Kirsten? Thank you.
While she gets set up, I need the mic. Hi, I'm Kirsten Davidson. Like she said, I lead talent brand at Visa. I sit in the marketing organization, specifically in the communications team, and more specifically than that, on the employee communications team. So we, on my team, big two people, look after everything prospective employee coming into the company, and then we partner very closely with employee communications to make sure the experience that people get once they're in the company actually reflects what we're telling them on the front side, right? Doesn't help if we're telling them a great story, they come in and have a different experience. So that's the work that we're doing right now. So I want to start with a quote from Dee Hock, who's our founder. This is 60 years ago. He said, "What if money became nothing more than electrons and photons that any individual could use anytime, wherever they happen to be, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day?" Fairly interesting for 60 years ago, right? What most people don't realize about Visa is that Visa pioneered the payments technology industry. Visa's not a credit card company. We don't issue credit. We're not a finance company based in New York, which a lot of people think. Less than 10,000 people globally. We're actually based here in Silicon Valley. When the company went public just back in 2008, it was the largest IPO in US history, up until last year when Alibaba went public. And then, let's see. going the wrong way. Get the hang of it. And then here's a quote from our CEO today. Now, the payments industry has changed a lot over the last 60 years, and so has Visa, but the reality is that our company's success and the success of all of our customers, and what you guys, a lot of you probably rely on, is our technology. And with that requires the best technologists in the industry. At a global company that we have a great brand, a company that people love. But we've got challenges in terms of hiring for a couple of reasons. First of all, we have very, very aggressive hiring goals right now. No surprise to anybody else how challenging that is. But our job, really, in our team is to ensure that we're among the top consideration set for technologists, drive awareness of Visa as a payments technology company, which you can imagine is challenging, and build an exciting image of Visa as a destination employer. So I'm going to share with you our Glassdoor page from last year when I started. So with social media, there's a lot of things you can't control, right? We've all talked about that. There was a question earlier about how do you control your story and where do you engage? And I would say you have to, and you have to do it hard, because anyone out there with a voice is who owns your brand, right? And so who is telling your brand? You can't leave it in the hands of other people. You have to be your own brand. How do you do that authentically? We'll get into it. But here you see kind of a boring picture of an outside of a building. Doesn't really say much about Visa. By our own admission, it says we're a finance company. We have other ads all over our page. So in a world where you can't own very much, you absolutely can own what you look like on Glassdoor and LinkedIn and others. Here's some photos that you would have seen a year ago on our website. I think they're probably pretty well-intentioned, right? They look nice. How many people in that photo do you think work at Visa? How many chalkboards do you think we have in our company? Right. The language here, changing the way the world pays 13,000 times a second, doesn't really connect me with a brand, so that was the first place to start. Right, and here's a picture of our booth that we had at conferences. Again, it's nothing bad about it, right? I mean, it's on brand, it's on color. I think most of the marketing team would look at that and think, man, that works. But you can imagine as we're trying to go after the top technologists in the world, that's not really telling a story that we need to tell. So we didn't have a whole lot of time to get this right. It started a year ago, and we had massive hiring goals that we had to fill. The recruiting team was coming to us with very specific asks. Not only did we have to figure out how to build a brand that resonated with the technologists, but how do we turn those into hires from the work that we do? So we really started with 4 pillars. As I talk about these, I think you can think about how this would translate for you at your company. So first of all, obviously be authentic. Amplify what's working. I'll get into that. Access the right audience. Doesn't do anyone good to just have a bigger pipeline. You need the right pipeline. And then you have to amaze them, because that's the fun part of the job, right? No one wants to work at a boring company. You got to make it fun. All right, so skipping. All right, so be authentic. Here's the thing with being authentic. If you're not, people will know it, and they'll tell you about it, and then you're going to have to do it all over again, right? So you just have to be authentic out of the gate. So first thing we did was pretty easy. Find pictures of our actual employees doing actual work in our actual offices, and then it naturally reflects that we're a technology company. We started to play around with this idea. You'll see up there, doing things that matter. That's our everywhere. Join our journey. So Visa, our tagline as a brand is everywhere you want to be. People are pretty familiar with that. So we started to play with this idea of our everywhere. And as an employee, being able to find your everywhere. What does that mean for you at a company that's global with a massive brand? Whatever it is you want to do, whatever you're looking for, you can find your everywhere. And again, we didn't have a whole lot of time to test it out. We certainly didn't have a lot of money to pay some big agency, a lot of time to test it and get it right. So we just had to kind of do it on the fly and hope for the best. So again, there's old one, new one. You get the idea. Glassdoor, we right ahead went away and made some ads for Glassdoor. These are kind of specifically geared at diversity, a world where everyone is accepted everywhere. That's where we want to be. Again, leading with our employees. Amplify what's working. Now, I'm sure you guys know, there's always such a huge pull in companies to fix what's broken. And you have to do that, right? And that's why we have employee surveys. It's why we have 360 reviews. They just focus on like getting better. And you have to do that. But you don't have time to get things right and to have things perfect before you have to execute. So you really have to look for what's working. And in any company, no matter what's going on, there's a reason people are there. There's a reason that people like their jobs. Find it and amplify it, whatever that is for you. So I am going to take some of the bad reviews and show them to you guys, because you can go find them. I picked these specifically because these are indicative of what we see and one of our big challenges. So first one, becoming a big company gives us 3 stars, right? Not great. But here's the pros. The people of Visa are tremendous. They are hardworking, intelligent, make the workplace fun. The office facilities are some of the best I've ever seen. Total compensation, best I've experienced in my career. Well, that's not bad, right? Morale hit rock bottom, 2 stars. That's pretty bad. But here are the pros. Camaraderie between peers, great staff, good work-life balance, global brand we're all proud to be part of, challenging products, lots of learning every time. Okay, so we have something to work with, right? And it's our people. So if you go on Glassdoor, you'll see some reviews, a lot of reviews that are hard. The company's in a transition, there's a lot of change happening, and as natural, there's some pushback on that. So we had to be authentic, start with what's working, what did that mean for us? So for us, we actually had to go old school. We didn't even have time to necessarily just proliferate social media and trying to tell our story. We also felt like that would be too heavy-handed. So what we did was we tried to create as many experiences as we could where our employees themselves would get in front of potential candidates and really have one-on-one experiences. And I'll get into a couple of things we did, but at every turn we could, we invited our employees and we asked them to do one thing, which is just tell your story. Tell them what it's like to work at Visa, tell them what you like about it, tell them what you don't. People have talked about you want the right candidate, and the right candidate is someone who's going to be on board with the challenges that you guys have, willing to be part of the solution. So the more that we could have our employees tell the story and make that connection, when people would hear something else, they could say, that's funny, because that's not really what I experienced. And ultimately, that's what changes minds, right, and hearts. Keep going the wrong way. So even at our conferences, slightly different booth you see here, we actually developed this specifically and went out to our employees and asked them to share their stories. We were able to share these stories all over, create some nice videos from things that we had existing, and have content that visually showed us as a technology company. You'll also see that strategically, we don't really have anything in the way, so when people were there, we actually could physically kind of have these more closer conversations with people instead of having it be like a kiosk where people think they're going to get a credit card from Visa, which happens. That's always a little awkward, especially on campuses. Oh, that's another story. So we also have really beautiful offices, right? Here's a shot of our San Francisco office. Another one, we're actually right above Autodesk. Even in Bangalore, we have a great tech center. So we really started to open up our office doors, literally, and invite people in. So Women Who Code, right? Great organization. So we reached out to them and said, hey, when you're doing your monthly meetup, do it at our office. We'd love to invite you in. We had our senior women sit down next to some of these people, and they all coded together. Some of our women who have been coding since before these girls were born, after the event, they were like, I think I'm badass. They are badass. They've been coding since the 70s. And we've done this in Singapore, in Austin, even in Bangalore, really working to open up our doors, bring people in, and let them experience Visa, because when people experience it for themselves, when we put a human face on it, it makes all the difference for us. All right, this is the harder one. How do you access your audience, right? So all the branding in the world is great, but how do you get to the right people? So I'm going to go through a couple examples that we had this year where we had some really tough challenges and we had to get very smart and pretty guerrilla about how we do it and how we changed perceptions and actually turned not just the brand work, but we actually hired these people in the end. So the challenge that we had in Austin was that by the end of the year, we had very specific goals that we had to meet. And we were pretty far behind, and this was in August. And so the recruiting team reached out to us and said, we had been there for 2 years as an organization, but we hadn't had to hire a lot. There was a hiring freeze, and now it was lifted. Now we had to hire a bunch of people, and there wasn't a huge pipeline. So how do we get into the get into the local community. So we started in August and cast a really wide net. And we had a recruiting event. We used social media to do targeting, and we just said, come meet us. We did it at a local theater. It was a pretty low-key event. We weren't sure how many people would come. But again, we wanted people to experience Visa and meet with people one-on-one so we could tell them the story and have them experience it for themselves. To get the word out, we partnered with Austin Technology Council. We worked with some local leaders who had good connections in the local area and said to them, hey, if you know great talent, just invite them in. Have them come talk to us. So we had a great turnout, and we were able to kind of start to get some people in our pipeline. And then in quick succession, we did a series of events that all the way through we were able to reach out to this pipeline, and the folks that were great, invite them back for another experience, invite them back for another experience. We did an event in our offices where we said to employees who were getting excited about all the work we were doing, wanted to engage. So we did this big event, and we said the cost of admission for you is you have to bring one friend who would be great to work at Visa. By the end of the year, we had not just met, but we had exceeded our goals. So here's a quick shot from our booth in South by Southwest. So South by Southwest we were at for the first time this year. Previously, the company had been mostly at kind of more financial security conferences. And from a branding perspective, we were trying to get our name out there, right, as a tech company. But we wanted to show up authentic. We wanted to reflect our offices and the spirit that we had in Austin. So you'll see that the booth is just a little bit different. Again, allowing people to kind of come in and engage with us more specifically. So Bangalore. Whole nother challenge here. So we were going to be opening up a tech center in February of this year. So this is kind of go back to last summer. And the challenge was that in Bangalore, we had never had an office before. And in India, where 99% of all transactions happen via cash, Visa is actually a relatively unknown brand. So how do we come in? And the goal was that by the end of this year, we would have over 1,000 people hired. So we had zero pipeline. We had zero recognition in the industry there in Bangalore. And if anyone's familiar, it's definitely the tech hub of India. It's sort of where the who's who of India technology community is. So how do we break in? And the double challenge for us was how do we reach women in India as well? Because even if we do some event and we go out and we do some evening event, that would be great, but how do we reach the women? Because chances are at an evening event, it's really going to be mostly the men who show up. So we did a little bit of digging, and we saw that the Grace Hopper event was going to be in November. And we thought, aha. So if any of you are familiar with Grace Hopper, it's a very large women's conference, brings in women technologists, and the one in India brings women from all over India. So we reached out to them, and we did just kind of a basic sponsorship to kind of test it out. And then we thought, let's use that time. Getting my 5-minute warning. Okay. And so in conjunction with that, we launched at a local spot and got the word out there. Again, we used social media to target people very specifically. As expected, we had about 99% of the people who attended were men. And then at Grace Hopper the following week, where we had started to create a little bit of buzz in Bangalore, we had a great showing at our booth in India. Today, the office is open. We have almost 500 people hired, and we have a healthy pipeline. Okay, last quick example. This spring, our recruiting team came to us, and they had some key technology roles that they were struggling to hire and wanted us to kind of help find the solution for them. So we sat down with them to understand where and what the roles were that they were struggling to hire. Using that information, we did very specific targeting on social media, and then we designed some events that would appeal directly to these types of folks, brought them in, again, had these great one-on-one interactions. What we found was that on average, we brought 75% of the attendees from all the events back for interviews the next day. All right, and then amaze them, right, the fun stuff. After one of our events, we had brought in a local food truck, just handed out ice cream sandwiches as they were walking out the door. At South by Southwest, we brought back the ice cream sandwiches because they were a lot of fun. We actually worked with them to develop this edible wrapper that they hands out, right? Just kind of a small thing. It said Visa on it. Was named one of 5 crazy brand promotions next to like HBO's Game of Thrones things, next to A&E Base Motel, and we were like, really, the wrappers? Okay. Let's see, we were doing an event downtown in Austin, and our offices aren't in downtown, they're in the north, and it's hard for people to get up to the north side because of traffic. So we, one night, did a quick pop-up office where people could come. We did demos, brought in some of our senior technologists, and allowed people to meet. And it doesn't all have to be big, fancy stuff. We were doing an intern summit a couple weeks ago. We brought in 300 of our interns from around the world to learn about the payments industry, meet with Visa leaders, make them excited, make them want to come back, right? And the team wanted to make great use of the time that everyone was there, right? They brought everybody out. They wanted to be able to show that they had this great agenda. And as we looked at it, we were like, that's great. There's a lot of content, but they're going to be so tired. And we didn't have any time to influence the agenda, but we thought maybe there's something fun we could do to kind of change the vibe in the room and the energy and just present something a little bit more fun. So a la Jimmy Fallon's lip sync, we called a local prop shop to see if we could get one of those big, spinning wheel thing. And we just grabbed the last most recent songs of summer, and then in between all the different sessions, we just brought them up and did some fun lip sync battle. It was a big fun. There's a shot at the end. So here's a shot of a LinkedIn article that one of our interns wrote about the summit when it closed. Destination Everywhere was the name of the summit. She wrote this, posted it up, got some great hits, really told an amazing story about her everywhere and how she's finding that at Visa. When other people start to tell the story, that's really our goal, right? How do we tell a story that's authentic, that we can get other people telling for us? So I've shared how we've done this, but where can you be authentic? What's working in your organization? What's the audience that you need to access, and how do you get smart and savvy and scrappy about doing that, because none of us have huge budgets? And then where can you maybe have a little bit more fun? So I went through this just a little bit, but today we have a huge increase in our qualified candidates, which I'm excited about. In Austin, we've also met our goals already for this year from a hiring perspective. In Bangalore, as I said, we have a healthy pipeline. We're on our way. Glassdoor, every little bit counts, I'd like to say. So we've moved from 2.8 to 3 stars. We're seeing improved ratings on our CEO. But seriously, we're seeing a big increase in our employees offering their perspectives. I actually had someone say to me the other day when he found out what I did, who I work with, and he was like, what do you do about those Glassdoor scores? Because that doesn't reflect my Visa. And I said, well, then go on and say that, please. That's what you do. Universum, we worked with them last year when we got on board. They had always had us as a finance company. We were trying to convince them to have us as a technology company. And this year, when the report came out, we actually rated higher as a technology company than we ever did as a finance company. So I want to leave you with our Glassdoor shot from today. You see actually pictures of our actual employees. Again, 3.0, because every little bit counts. Kind of proud of that. Not that I can take credit, but we're getting there. And as an open company, we work very closely with Glassdoor and try to take advantage of as much as we can. So as an open company, one of the benefits we get is we can move a positive review to the top. So that's what we do. All right. And then Q&A. I was going to close with a video, but I don't think I'm going to. Okay.
All right, just raise your hand if you do have a question, please. Come on, guys, don't be shy. All right. Right here. Over here? Okay.
I'm just curious, you were talking about technology a lot. How many of these hires, or what percentage, were engineering hires or, actual technology positions versus, marketing for that or something along those lines?
A little higher than 80%. Yeah, most of the work that we've been doing, kind of the bulk of the work, so we work with and really support the university team, the technology team across the board, and then executive recruiting. But the bulk of what we're doing and what we're focused on is technology.
Great, we have another question over here.
It sounds like your marketing department and HR and recruiting all worked pretty closely together to execute some of this stuff quickly, as you were saying. So any tips for those of us who may not have that tight of a relationship with our marketing department?
No, that's a great point. And that's why I started out to say that I'm on the marketing team, because I think it's unique that we're kind of in that organization instead of in the HR organization. Actually, most of my budget is actually from the talent acquisition team, which is kind of funny. When I came on board, we actually had to work pretty closely with the brand team, who, as you can maybe imagine, Visa has very strict brand standards around our brand, how we use it. And we actually spent quite a bit of time with them, kind of the head of brand in particular, taking him out to lunch and really convincing him that we needed to have some leniency in this. And we said, just give us a year and let us try some stuff. And we do run everything we do by them. They've actually given us a little bit of leniency to kind of push the brand, understanding that if we have to appeal to the technology folks, if we have to appeal to the university students, we can't show up looking like a credit card company, because it just reinforces some misperceptions, right? And then the work that we do really is in service of HR. So at some companies, the employment brand is a little bit more on the branding side. For us, while we influence as much as we can from a brand perspective, at the end of the day, if our measurement doesn't result in hires and we can't translate, so I'm sort of out of a job, right? So as we go to conferences, when we do our events, we actually have very specific ROI where we have to track the amount of people who came in, and then we track how many people we've interviewed based on that, and then how many people we've hired. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Hi, I'm Eduardo Diaz with ACES. My question to you is, how do you identify startups that you invite into your company offices, or for groups to work?
Do you mean to like services that we need?
No, for them just to work within your environment, to use the beautiful office spaces that you have.
Yeah, just call me. Yeah, I would love that. No, it's pretty guerrilla, really, and we actually reach out to them. So, as we're doing a lot of recruiting in the diversity area, Visa actually happens to be a very diverse company. It's also very diverse in age, which is pretty unique in the Silicon Valley. But Girls Who Code, Black Girls Who Code, there's a lot of really fantastic organizations locally. There's some great ones in Bangalore and Singapore, and we work hard to kind of make connections with them, to reach out and offer them an invitation. It basically just takes a phone call, say, hey, we would love to have an event. Can you help host us? And we would love to do that.
One last question over here.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually perfect timing. My question was about diversity. Do you use any diversity tools software, or is it just strictly partnerships?
Right now, it's simply partnerships. We've actually just been running kind of so fast and furious over the last year. We certainly are looking at doing things. We have our head of diversity inclusion. We partner very closely with her, and we make sure we stay pretty close to their goals and that we're supporting their goals. So right now, it really has been about trying to drive more personal relationships again. And that's really where we have found success in today's open, transparent market. We need to come across and be as human as possible, and that's hard to do as a big, kind of faceless company like Visa.
All right, any further questions?
Thank you.
All right, great, thank you. All right, this is Molly McKinstry of Glassdoor. She's going to tell you guys a little bit about some Glassdoor stuff, and just give me one moment.
Okay, we're good. We're on. Hey guys, thank you so much for being here today, and thank you to all of the presenters. I think there's been a plethora of really good information for us, so hopefully this has felt like a really useful session for you. As Mallory said, my name is Molly, and I am one of the sales leaders at Glassdoor. Right now I'm leading our enterprise client team, so the group of folks that are working with our clients and really trying to understand how is Glassdoor helping move the needle forward for you all in your business and specific to your recruiting initiative. So before I get in, just by show of hands, how many people in this room are currently a Glassdoor client? Wow, round of applause, guys. Very, very cool. With that, and it may still be the same group, and that's totally fine. Honest feedback. Who has at some point been very terrified by the reviews on Glassdoor pertaining to your company? A little, okay, honest, halfway honest, okay. So I think, the message today has obviously been the recruitment space has just fundamentally changed. We're in a really, really different arena than we were, as Andrew said, in the olden days, 5 to 6 years ago. And Glassdoor is really embracing kind of what the candidate's behavior now looks like. So kind of walking through that, we know 2/3 of job applicants say that they are more skeptical of claims made by employers now than they were even just 4 years ago. And that kind of hurts a little, because that's our job, right? I mean, our job as kind of recruiters and the recruiting teams from these organizations is to tell the story and why your organization is so great and why these candidates should come work there. And this stat tells us, well, geez, 61% of them say they don't really trust that, right? And so I think a lot of the tools that we've heard about today and getting behind the curtain and really explaining what it's like to actually work there is going to help. It's going to move the needle. But the message really is we just can't do what we used to do and expect it to work, right? And we know that every single day, all of us are making decisions based on reviews. I think that this was in Robert's presentation, especially the tattoo parlor. I plan to go there immediately after this. And Yelp and all of that. And it's not surprising that we just live in a consumer kind of driven world where information is readily available and we're going to go get it. So Amazon, right? That is the place we go for information on products, Trip for travel, Yelp for dining, and then really Glassdoor has become that for the employment space. And really our goal, our mission, and what drives us every single day is to help people find the jobs and companies that they love. I mean, that is why we were created, and that is what we are set out to do. So while I absolutely can say that, what hotel you stay at, or what camera you buy, or where you eat dinner, those are important decisions. But I think those of us in this room can acknowledge the fact that where you work and where you spend 40, 50, 60 hours a week away from your family, away from doing things in life that aren't working, that's a pretty big decision, right? And I think maybe with the exception when I was 8 months pregnant and sending my husband out to get me food at all hours of the night, Yelp may have superseded that at that time. But really, where you work matters, and giving these candidates a true look into what that's going to be like, it's our job. It's what we've got to do. So this is no surprise. We've talked about it a lot today, but there's just a lot more information out there that these candidates are going to use to try to make these informed decisions. Maybe just a couple years ago, really your career site was all they had. And they went there and they did their due diligence, and there, to Kristen's point, were some beautiful photos of people none of us know or have ever seen, but that was what the candidates relied on. And now they're just going far beyond that, right? They're utilizing sites like Glassdoor, like LinkedIn, like Facebook, like Twitter, and we need to be there in order to help them make these informed decisions. So something that everyone may not know, and those of you who are our clients, you do, but our audience is really diverse and really informed. We now have 30 million members, which is pretty crazy. I've been at Glassdoor for 4 years, which I can tell you makes me like a dinosaur at Glassdoor. People look at me like I have 8 heads when I tell them I've been there since 2011. But we have grown so much, so incredibly fast. And when Robert shared today that we are the fastest growing career site in the US, now larger than CareerBuilder, and before the end of this year, most likely larger than Monster. I mean, that's kind of crazy. And yes, obviously I'm very passionate about Glassdoor, and so I'm fortunate to be a part of the team, but it's more crazy to think of, that's because of the candidates. I mean, candidates are just fundamentally demanding a different job-seeking experience. And organizations like CareerBuilder and Monster have been around for 20 to 30 years. And so to know that, a 7-year-old, 8-year-old organization has surpassed them, it's just because of the content that we have. And that's what our candidates want to see. The other piece I want to call out here is if you look at this years of experience, and I think this is something that really surprises a lot of employers who maybe don't know a lot about Glassdoor yet. Certainly you can see, we have a heavy millennial kind of demographic, no doubt about that. But when you look to the 6 to 10 and over 11 years of experience, a lot of feedback that we get is like, man, that really surprised me. I did not expect tenured individuals or folks that have been, in the career space for that amount of time to utilize a site like Glassdoor. But when you think about it, those are the people who probably have the greatest luxury of doing research and ultimately being picky. Like, I get to probably choose from a number of different job opportunities. If I've been in the space for 10 plus years, I'm really good at what I'm doing. I want to know, is this the right next move for me? And that you can see based on the users who are coming to us. Something also that maybe is like a myth that we could debunk today is people only go to Glassdoor to look at the profile, right, or look at the reviews, and that's ultimately what they're coming to do. And we have seen just a shift that now over 52% of those 30 million members are coming to look for jobs. That's what they're coming to do. And I know Robert kind of showcased that today, that jobs matched with the user-generated content, it's kind of creating like this flywheel effect. But we know that 4 in 5 users that come to our site are either actively looking for jobs or they're at least open to exploring opportunities. So I definitely challenge you all in the audience today who are maybe thinking, Glassdoor is a great site to tell your story and brand your company, but that's really kind of the confines of what you can do there. That's just not true. And we would love to kind of talk further and educate you about the power of having your jobs on the site and the types of results that our clients are seeing, many of whom are in this room. And how does that happen, right? Like, why would Glassdoor be a really productive platform for job-seeking behavior and showing your jobs? And it's really because, again, if you think about just the amount of information that we have, it's creating a way, way, way more informed candidate that ultimately is a really good thing for us and you all kind of on these hiring teams and recruitment teams, because the more information that's available to these folks, the better decision that they're going to make as to whether or not they're ultimately a good fit. Quick story, it's funny, I had a candidate the other day kind of tell me that, recruiting is actually a lot like matchmaking. And yeah, I was like, okay, let's go there. Let's talk through this a little bit. And, it was, you've got to find the right person. And then ultimately, if you decide you have found that person, you want to attract them in. And that's great, right? But the piece that's kind of not stated there is, like, are we being honest about what happens when you come in, right? I can tell you all, like, I could stand up here and say, my gosh, I just have like the greatest family ever. I'm the baby of 4. We're so tight. Everyone's great. But like anyone who may have dated me in my life would be like, those crazy people are nuts. Like, that's a tight family, but wow, you got to like watch out. And that's kind of where I went when I went to matchmaking and recruiting, because if we can give these job seekers more information, more insight, I think Andrew said pimples and blemishes, or I think you went with warts. But if we can show them that, we're just more likely to find the right person who's going to stay, who's going to be the right fit. And something that I do think is important, because we talk a lot about too, like our best practice clients are tracking and really understanding kind of the data behind all of their vendor relationships and their resources that they're using. And that's another thing that we really challenge everybody to do, because then you can start to make really informed decisions about what is working. We obviously have limited resources. I don't think I've ever gotten on the phone with a client that's like, Molly, good news, our budget tripled. wow, like that call hasn't happened. I will take that call. I don't get them. So it's really, really important when you have kind of a pool and limited resources, which we all do, you got to know what's working. And so just showcase here, like these are the types of results that we're talking about. Top 5 source of hires, reducing time to hire, 22 engineering hires at a $700 cost per hire. And those are stats that we get really, really excited about as we're trying to help you all just move your business forward and do more for your organizations. So let's talk about how you can get involved today, because you can. Everybody, if you don't already have a free employer account on Glassdoor, can we do that today? Like, is that something we can commit to today? It's free. Just go and unlock access to your free employer account. And there's a lot of analytics that you will have access to immediately, which are going to help. They're going to just at least start some conversations internally that may not be happening. What's your brand awareness? Is it growing? What's your brand reputation? What are your current employees saying about you? What are your former employees saying about you? Do you know? And does it feel like the right representation? How does your awareness kind of stack up versus your competition, right? I mean, we're all kind of in this war for talent, and I think we've talked about software engineers specifically in the Bay Area. We all want the best of the best, but do you know what your competition is doing? Do you know what their brand awareness or their brand reputation looks like? Because that's what we're going up against. And ultimately, who has my organization top of mind today? And is that the right audience? So if you sign up for a free employer account today, you can get all of that insight. So my challenge, please, let's do it. When you talk about Glassdoor, and I know Andrew had fielded some questions about, how can you really engage and what's the ROI that you're going to get? Something that we've seen is organizations that have taken ownership of their profile, they've enhanced it, they're part of that conversation, they are influencing more candidates than just utilizing your career site. And we know this. Glassdoor Labs conducted a research study actually measuring the candidate influence of the enhanced profile on Glassdoor. Over 9,000 results. You can see we actually put this badge on our profile, based on this company's page. Is this a place you'd like to work? And 74% of candidates said yes when the employer had taken ownership of that page and, really was kind of creating this 360-degree view of this is what life is like here. And guys, it makes sense. I mean, it really does. Like, a candidate wants to know what your employees say. We saw that. 2/3 of them don't even really trust us. So they want to know what your employees say, but they want to know that you care what your employees say, right? And this is the place that you can do that. So really quickly, let's just talk through what solutions we have. Display advertising, we can help you target your ideal candidates, get in front of the audience that may not be thinking about you today. And if you have specific initiatives, millennial-driven campaigns, diversity-driven campaigns, there's a certain group of folks that you want to get in front of, advertise to them. The enhanced profile, which we just chatted through, and then, of course, job slots. Getting your jobs in front of people that already don't have you top of mind. This is something that Robert, I think, also had touched on, and I know I already said it in terms of, we are now really a player in the job space. Over half our audience is coming here to research jobs. And with that, and now kind of with the client experience that I've had, we know you are just going to have profoundly more success in a relationship with us, and if you do decide to work with us, by hosting jobs alongside your profile, and we can obviously talk through that kind of more offline. But if you think about it, your profile is fantastic because those are the folks that are already thinking of you, right? They, for whatever reason, have already decided, hey, I want to learn more about this company. But we have 30 million users, and all of them are not thinking that. So it's really important to kind of have these two solutions working in tandem so that we can help you cast that wider net in a really strategic, very targeted manner, but then also complete the story once they get to your profile. We've already talked through results. I think I showed you that on the previous page, but really the point here is we care about tracking and ROI. I would never, ever, confidently get on a phone with any of my clients and not understand, like, what does a win look like? Where do you need to go in the next 12 months? Where are you trying to bring your business, and how can Glassdoor be a part of that? And Enterprise is a really great example. We're one of their #1 sources of hires for their management trainee program, and you can see the details here. I think I'm good on time. I'm going. I'm the only thing between you and lunch, so I realize that's a very dangerous place to be. Homepage highlights. So this is going to be when you come to Glassdoor and you just come to our homepage. This is really kind of a premium way to take advantage of awareness and influence. This is going to be a 4% share of voice product, but it's really, really great if any of you are kind of ramping up for seasonal hiring or about to take on a bunch of new open recs that maybe weren't in the cards even just a few months ago. This is a really great thing to consider. So really quick, I want to just share with you all the revamped Employer Center, which is amazing. And I know we already talked about that free employer account that everyone is going to sign up for. This is some of the insights that you're going to get today. You're going to be able to see a breakdown of the demographics and interests. What are the top researched organizations after your job seeker comes to your page? How are your ratings trending? And you can even slice it to kind of audit your brand and understand what locations are, saying about certain hiring managers, or, what is the work-life balance in certain parts of your organization versus other locations. There's so much great insight here that you all can use and start to make some really, smart decisions about what to do with your recruitment strategy. A couple of things that are new and exciting for us. Robert had mentioned we are, now in 8 countries, and kind of the global expansion project is on full force. But we have localized pages now where you can tell the story kind of specific to that market, and make sure that the candidates who are in the UK or are in Germany or France can have an experience that's reflective of what they want to see as a candidate. Branded jobs, this is a really exciting new pilot program for us where we're helping kind of with that branded content and that really, really personalized job seeking experience with embedded videos and reviews specific to every job. Newly designed Employer Center, I touched on that. Candidate retargeting, you can find an ideal candidate on Glassdoor and follow them off the site. All of this is what we consider kind of new and exciting and is additional value add to the clients that we're already working with. I know Kristen touched on the featured review where you can kind of identify, this is a really great review. This feels really reflective of what's going on here today. And we have kind of our more advanced clients even changing this review to mirror their hiring needs, right? Like, okay, we have a really big push right now in sales and marketing. We need a feature review that's going to match the candidates we're trying to get in front of right now. Talked about reviews and analytics and homepage highlights. So let's talk about the things that, again, are free. You don't have to pay for them, but are available to you today. So when you create that free employer account, you're going to see in this Employer Center at the top here where it says products, resources, and blogs. And this is where you're going to find just a lot of kind of thought leadership information, right? We have ebooks, we have webinars, we have teams kind of traveling all across the country and now internationally, trying to learn more about not only what's happening in your worlds, but how can we just continue to be better, be more rebellious in recruiting, which is the ever-changing kind of world that we live in. And you can see here, you come to resources, everything on the side, client case studies. With that, I'm going to wrap up and just kind of remind everybody, if you don't already know about our employer Branding Summit. It's happening at the end of September, and it's going to be a huge event. It's really exciting. We've got a great kind of lineup of folks who are going to be speaking, very similar to today, but it's an all-day event, and it's going to be fantastic. So the actual event itself is sold out, but like we are today, we are going to be live streaming, and it'll be all day long, so you can kind of have it up in the background and in and out as you're going through your day. But there'll be a lot of really great content there that will only just add to the things that you guys have hopefully taken away from today. So with that, I will certainly open up the floor, any questions for me, and then also invite the other presenters from today back on the stage. And if there's any questions for any of us, fair game. Let's go. Yeah, so guys, you can come back up. Sorry.
All right, are there any questions in the audience? No? Did I see a hand over here? Okay, shy group over here.
I think we just answered all of their questions.
Yeah. You were very thorough, Molly.
I think we're ready for lunch.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, if there aren't any questions, I want to thank everybody for coming. This was a wonderful event. Thank you to all of our speakers. Let's give them a round of applause. All right, and just to let you all know, we'll be sending out a survey in the follow-up email, so feel free to give us some feedback about your experience today. On your way out, please do grab some fun swag at the table outside, and again, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much. We're going to hang out for a little bit. If you do have any questions, feel free to come say hi. Thank you.